Alrighty guys, today we're going to be going over the JWOC 2019 Relay, which was another course that I did. We're going to be looking at the leg that I did, and in fact we're going to be looking at my route as well. I was part of the team USA 2, as you can see. Yeah, and this course was pretty freaking awesome. If you can't already tell by just the look of the map, it's just sick. It's incredible. Like, it just looks, it's beautiful. There's so many crazy, interesting contours and so many features that like are just so different from each other, and they contrast, and trails and everything. It was just an absolutely amazing course. So we're going to be going over this. Once again, I'm going over my own route because it's kind of fun to reminisce over orienteering courses that I've done, specifically since there's like not much orienteering going on right now, especially since I'm injured. So we're gonna be looking at my route, and more specifically, we're gonna be going over. We're gonna be focusing on simplifying the route to each control. And we're also going to be focusing on picking a small number of features between each control that we're going to use to get from one control to the next. And we're going to decide which ones are the most important. So let's just jump right into it. First control for me, as you can see, there's a lot of forking and stuff going on. My first control was C. Some people had to go to 2 controls. That's why it's labeled as number 3. I just had to go to C and then number 3. Some people had to go to B and then number 3. I'm pretty happy with this control. It was pretty easy compared to the rest. So let's play the route. As you can see, it's basically running this hill. Maybe in hindsight, going over isn't necessary. You can just go around the hill, save a little climb, and you're not adding that much extra distance. But simplifying this route, the main thing you're focusing on is this hilltop. It's big, so it's not very clear exactly where you are. It's not like a point feature where you can just pinpoint exactly where you are. But what it does is it lays this big picture view of where you are, and you can kind of use where you are in relation to the hill using distance estimation and such to navigate your way into C here. So let's clear that. So my next control was not actually A here, it was number 3, confusingly. Another pretty simple control, pretty short. Again, key features. This reentrant / marsh, the reentrant kind of goes up that way, and then this hilltop is another important thing to consider. And what you can do is just take a rough compass this way. You'll see this reentrant, and you're like, okay, I know exactly where I am. I just need to cross this saddle. I see this hilltop, I see the spur coming down this way, and you just go over, go through, go into the reentrant, hit your control. Easy peasy, no problem. So that was good. I believe that's what I did. Let's see. Yeah. Pretty much exactly what I did. Now we're getting into some more interesting routes. So out of number 3, compass is fine. You have a decent number of features. Just stay to the left here of this marsh and hill. As you can see, I kind of contoured around the hill a little bit here. Stayed to that side of the small marsh. And then what else you want to focus on this route is this reentrant is going to be pretty clear. Same with the hilltop behind it because of just the definition of the contours there. Big reentrant, big hilltop is going to be super clear. I believe that also, just route choice wise, this trail is not a bad option. so you wouldn't even have to focus on any of these. I forget exactly what I did for this route. I think straight is also good. But this trail is, again, another feature you can use to simplify the route. And then heading into the control, this lake is huge. You basically, as long as you get somewhere here, as long as somewhere from 3, your route takes you anywhere here, then you have this lake, and no matter where you are, you have a very easy attack into the control, because you know which side of the lake you're coming from, and then from there you just take a look, you go in. Number 4 is on this hilltop. You really can't miss it. This hilltop is very well defined too. So after the lake, you jump to this feature, and then just to the feature that the control circle is on. So yeah, that is that. Let's see what I did for my route, actually. I'm curious. So I went a little straight, which is fine. That's great. Perfect route. Just go. Avoid a little climb. Staying super close to the line, but avoiding climb when I can. And then finding my way to one side of the lake. In this case, I went to the left, which is perfectly fine. And then this hilltop, super clear. This whole contour feature, super clear. Several contours above everything else, and you just use that to get into the control feature. Number 5, this control could be somewhat tricky if you just take a quick look at it, because there's really not much, or it looks like there's not much to go off of. There's not very many point features or handrails or anything that you can use to make sure you're on the line. But one thing you can use that is pretty solid is just the hillside. So if you come out of 4, hit the trail, you know that 5 is pretty much going to be at the bottom of this steep hillside. So all you have to do really is come out, hit the trail, and contour or drop to the bottom of this hillside and just follow it along, and you're going to hit this creek eventually, and then that's going to lead you pretty much right into the field that number 5 is on. So that's perfect. Let's play the route. That's exactly what I did. Just go out, just read. You can use distance estimation relative to the hillside to kind of determine where you're running in from, and kind of just simplify it like that, and just say, instead of just trying to read specific features like vegetation or anything, you just say, okay, here's the hillside, I'm going across this trail, and then I'm just sticking to the bottom of the hillside until I reach this creek or field, which number 5 is on. So number 6, I think I had this pit. So that's what we're going to use. So coming out, there's a lot of stuff here that is kind of annoying to read. All this stuff, pretty annoying to read. A lot of trails and stuff. Thankfully, you don't really have to read it, because you really just want to start heading towards number 6. It doesn't really matter which direction, or it does matter, the direction matters, but actually reading the detail here does not really matter. So you just run up this wide reentrant. You can kind of go anywhere out this direction on a rough compass, and then from here you have to start deciding how you're going to attack this pit. So there's this building with this reentrant, which is a pretty solid attack, because A, you can come in through this this reentrant and marsh area to get into the building pretty easily. Also, if you come out here, you can go through the trail and getting to this building is not too difficult. Any direction that you go out of number 5. So if you do hit this building, then you have a pretty clear attack. You just have to go over this hill. You do have to do a little bit of climb, but climb is not the end of the world when you have a solid attack into the control, because when you go over this hill, you then have this trail, but more importantly than the trail, you have this reentrant. Let me clear this up for you guys. You have this reentrant, and then behind that reentrant you have this spur. Now, this combination makes your attack into 6 extremely clear, because all you have to do is, if you hit this reentrant, then you know the spur is right behind it, and then the spur literally points you directly into number 6, which is what you want, especially on a control that is, I forget if it's in the pit or on the side of a pit, but if it's in a pit, then you want something super clear like this spur that points you pretty much directly where you want to go. So let's play this out. As you can see, I kind of just started going, rough compass, boom, I hit the trail, probably, I see the building, just go over. I attacked from this reentrant, which works. As long as you can see this spur pointing at the control, you can judge where you are according to that. Now, let's move this along. Number 7. I think I had D, yep, D to D, that makes sense. So, this is actually kind of technical. You hit this trail, one feature you can use right here, trail, stream junction. Whether or not this is clear, it might not be clear, so I'd be careful if you use a feature like this. But what else you can use is, instead of just the junction, you can just use your compass. And with your compass, what you can do is just make or judge where you are on this curve. And if you see yourself hit here, you line up the map and you're like, okay, the trail is going this way and I see it curve up that way, so I know I'm here. And then from here, I'm just gonna punch in, and you can kind of see this reentrant, maybe. And then this hilltop might not be that clear, it's only one contour, but its relation to this reentrant here should be pretty clear. And you can kind of just come over into this reentrant, which first of all, this reentrant is not very clear, or it's not very distinct because it's so wide. But because it's although it's so wide, you're really just trying to get to the center of the reentrant. So you just got to attack and go to the center, and if you go too far, you'll start going up a little bit. If you're not far enough, then you'll still be going down. So you will know when you pass this line, or that was poorly drawn, but you know what I mean, like this line here. You will know when you hit it, because all of a sudden this wide reentrant, you were going down and then you start going up. So you will know when you hit that line, and the important thing is figuring out where you are on that line and how to make sure that you hit it where the control circle is. And that would basically just be knowing where you came off of from the trail, maybe hitting this hilltop, maybe the stream, and then just taking a rough compass so that, like, say you're at the hilltop, you're here, take a rough compass, could be off a little, but no matter how off you are, you're going to be within this area and you're going to be able to see the stream feature and the control point. So moving on to number 8. This one is somewhat tricky simply because of there's a lot of linear features, but you can kind of ignore them, which is a big takeaway from this map, honestly. Like if you look, there's just so much crap on it that you can just ignore and just read the contours, because those were very clear and very distinct and well mapped. So if you just ignored all the noise and focus on the contours, then you could do very well. I'm gonna play myself forward a little bit, see what I do, and let's take a look at number 8. So number 8 was another one that could be tricky if you didn't use the strategy that I just outlined, which is ignore all the crap in your way that like doesn't matter. Because what matters here is that, whoa, that was big. What matters here is that there's this spur that you cross, and then there's this reentrant with streams. Feel free to read the streams. I think they were pretty distinct when you got close to them. And then after the streams, there is another spur-ish thing where number 8 is in a reentrant on that spur. So what you want to use is definitely this spur. You want to go around the spur, and then I would probably read this, try to find this stream bend or this stream junction, or if you're too high and you don't see either of them, then you know that you need to correct to the north to hit number 8 properly. So let's see what I do exactly. I just hit that junction, and then you know exactly where you are, and you just go in, and it's really that simple. Like, this is all you need to see on the route. You don't need to read, oh, I crossed a ride, I crossed a ride, I crossed a ride, there's a veg boundary, oh, I crossed one stream and there's a bend in the stream, and then oh, there's another ride, and oh, my control. No, you just need to say, okay, I'm going around this spur and I'm gonna hit this creek somewhere. I'm gonna make sure I know where I'm crossing the creek. Oh, okay, perfect, I crossed at the junction. So I just need to follow the edge of this creek, and then that will point me right into my control. So it's really that simple. This control, I had G10 or I9. Yeah, I had I9. And for this one, this was a fun leg because it's so flat in the beginning. You kind of just take a rough compass out this direction. You're probably going to end up somewhere here. If you take a very rough compass, you can read this spur. So as you're coming in, say you start with a rough compass and you're like, okay, I'm running somewhere here. That's pretty wide, but we'll say it's that wide. And then once you see this, you can converge onto it like that. So instead of just continuing your rough compass in your whatever wild direction you're going, you can kind of narrow it down based on what you see in the terrain. So you come out here, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go towards the spur. Come out here, you're like, okay, there's the spur, I'm gonna come towards it. And that way you end up somewhere on the trail here, and you have a much more narrow area that you have to navigate from. And you know kind of exactly where you are when you hit the trail based on where you climb the spur. And then from here, let's simplify the rest of this route, starting from here. Huge hillside. You should see that on your left pretty much the entire way to I-9. This hillside too will end up being useful because you can use the two of those to kind of create a line for yourself going into I-9, and that creates a beautiful line that gets you to this trail. From here, things get kind of tricky because if you're here, you don't really have that much to read between here and I-9, which is on the edge of this thicket. So what you can do is realize that I-9 is pretty low and in quite a flat spot compared to this hillside. So when you go in, you can basically say, okay, I'm on this trail, I'm gonna run across this spur and I'm gonna go down until it gets somewhat flat, and then I'm gonna contour and then hit my control. So that's a decent strategy. I believe what I did was not that at all, but we can take a look. I think I might have ran to this trail right here and then went down the spur. I think I also made a small mistake. Oh no, so far it's pretty much exactly what I said. Except I ran too far, too high on the spur, which, like I said, you want to kind of stay in the flat area. So let's move on to number 10. This one was pretty easy. Like here, you can just simplify the heck out of it. Rough compass will get you there, somewhere here. And actually, by the time you're like here, then you can't miss it. Once you're here, you literally can see this spur and you just hone in onto the reentrant. You don't need to take a precise compass, even though this is vague and flat. You just need to look up and read the contours and take a rough compass, and then you'll find your way to the reentrant. Oops, okay, let's go to 11. 11 was a nice control, especially from where I attacked from. As you can see, I'm kind of attacking up this ride. So use handrails, use linear features, they're really good. So basically I had free orienteering, basically, that's what I'm going to call it, free orienteering, all the way up until this bend. And then from here, it was also pretty easy because, again, rough compass, you can be off. Like rough compasses, you can be off, but that's fine. Because once you get here, you have this whole reentrant that you can read, and you can judge where you are based on this reentrant. So even if you're off by 10 degrees compared to the line that you're trying to hit, you can correct based on things in the terrain, like this reentrant. So you come off this bend, climb the reentrant, go in. I don't like that route as much. Just climb the nose, it's fine. And then from here, another rough compass, and it's such a short distance, you can just hit this reentrant no problem, and it's kind of close to the top, so you want to keep that in mind. So you don't really want to drop too much, or else you know you've gone too far to the left. So I will play out this route as we take a look at number 12. Yep, just come up the nose, beautiful. Number 12, let's see. So 12 was also pretty interesting. I believe I made a mistake here, but essentially you just come down, hit this trail, and you know where you hit the trail based on where you came down out of 11. If you came down through the reentrant, you can hit it down here. If you stayed a little higher on the spur, you can come out somewhere here. And then based on where you come out on the trail, you pretty much have the same strategy. You just come over this hill and contour around to number 12. So let's watch what I did to kind of pinpoint. some of the key features. This spur, or this reentrant, very clear. Like you can tell it's super well defined in the terrain. This fence is also what you want to use. I made a mistake here. Unfortunately, I stayed too high. So if I were to think of a way I could correct for that, it would probably be noticing this rock and judging the direction from the rock that I should be going, and also just judging how far away from the field and the fence from the top of the spur that number 12 actually is. And that's just distance estimation, which is a very important skill and one that's you need a lot of practice to kind of master. So I'm probably going to cut this off short, but let's go over some of these next couple legs as we make our way to the spectator. As you can see, out of 12, pretty straightforward so far. You just take the ride to the trail, free orienteering once again. And then this was actually a tricky control. I think it threw off a decent number of people. So let's take a look at what is good to use as, or what's a good way to simplify this control. I think that you can use this reentrant or this spur, depending on how clear they are. I think it should be somewhat clear, because this is a one contour spur and this is a form line spur or a form line hilltop. So the distinctness of the spur should be somewhat clear, considering that all the surrounding land is so flat. Also, since I know this terrain, these trees can be quite clear at times, but I don't really like relying on them. So if you come through here, let's do the rough compass thing again. Hit this, let's rough compass. We're gonna be somewhere within here. So if you're somewhere within here, this ride, it's gonna be clear. The rides here were very clear. Use this as your next rough compass, and you're almost guaranteed to hit this control. And another thing you can use is this hilltop behind. The control is going to be very clear as a catching feature, and you don't even have to use it as a catching feature. In fact, you can use it as a navigational feature, because as you come in on your rough compass, if you just know you're somewhere here, then look for this hill, and you know where the pit is relative to the hill. So if you know where the pit is relative to the hill, and you know where you are relative to the hill, then you know where you are relative to the pit. That might sound complicated, but really what you're trying to do is know where you are, see the hill, and you're like, okay, so there's the hill. The pit is next to the hill, but a little bit south of the middle. So I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna run in to where I think the pit is relative to the hill. And again, this is distance estimation and it requires some practice, but it is extremely useful in orienteering. So let's finish up number 14 and 15, and then we can be done. 14, this one was pretty straightforward. Essentially, you hit this trail and you're running on a pretty, you don't need to take that precise of a compass again. You hit this trail somewhere, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go around this hill, use the hill as a feature, and then it's gonna be super flat. And I'm just gonna take my rough compass somewhere this way, stay low, don't wanna stay high, and then eventually, and you'll be able to see this field from miles away, but eventually you're gonna hit somewhere here and get funneled into this trail. So basically, regardless of where you go, like in this whole area of the route from 13 to 14, you're gonna get funneled into this spot. So you don't really have to overthink the route. Then from here, you use the trail for some free orienteering. And then the white forest was pretty distinct from the field, so you can just punch in. In this case, the green slash wasn't so bad because so many runners have been through it. So you just punch in, look up for the white forest, for the vegetation boundary between those two things. And also you're kind of just going into this shallow reentrant. And if you're on this trail bend, your rough compass will pretty much get you there 100% of the time. So that's all I'm going to be doing for this course analysis. It's already gone pretty long. The rest of the course was pretty interesting, so you can take a look at that yourself if you'd like. But other than that, I think we're done. Thank you for watching.